Please everyone make a prayer. Each of you, pray now. Lord, whatever we have to say here, we only want to say what we've heard from Guru in Scripture. No distortion and no inappropriate motivation. We're coming here together to please the Lord, to glorify the Lord. And at the end of the talk, or at the end of your day tonight when you're about to take rest, if you find yourself saying, how wonderful is Krishna? How wonderful is Krishna? Lord, how wonderful you are. How wonderful is Srila Prabhupada. This is the mantra. So in one sense, this is the disappearance day. Say that again. Okay. Want me to do that? We're taping Chandrasekhar Maharaj's fingers to the microphone. That's not bad. That's good. So in one sense, today is the disappearance day, the day that Srila Prabhupada left this world, ostensibly. But Scripture says, he reasons ill who says that Vaishnavas die. He reasons ill who says that Vaishnavas die, because Vaishnavas live in sound, and in living, spread the holy name around. So, it's a fact. When I was in high school, we had this relay race. You've seen? They have a baton, and one person takes the baton, he runs, and then the next person comes and he hands him the baton. So Prabhupada is handing off the responsibility, the nectar, the service that he set in motion. And we're here on his behalf. And that nothing is lost. Recently, we had kind of a contentious conversation with one of other devotee, and he was saying that the people who are serving as spiritual guides, accepting disciples, caring for people, they are not really Guru. Only Prabhupada is Guru. So I said to him, well, in one sense, the sentiment you have is correct. When you go to the pharmacy for the card store, they have these Father's Day card. World's best father. You've seen that? Right? And then you take that card and behind it, there's another card that says, world's best father. So that idea that nope, there's nobody like my spiritual master. And everyone should feel like that. But in another sense, we don't want to minimize Srila Prabhupada's potency and say, Prabhupada cannot show other people how to do this service. Prabhupada cannot empower other people to serve as spiritual master. I said to him, don't tell me my Prabhupada can't do that. You may believe like that, but don't say that to me because that's not fact. And I cannot bear to hear that you're minimizing Srila Prabhupada's greatness. So Srila Prabhupada is handing off. Wow. You hear that? Krishna's saying yes. Srila Prabhupada is handing off this service to us to take it up, and certainly, just like you take a candle, a lighted candle, it's giving off heat and light, right? And you take that candle and you touch it to another candle, and what is this? It's giving off heat and light. Right? And you can take that candle and light 1,000 other candles. And each one of them will give, and that is the disciplic succession. So Srila Prabhupada's glory is not only that he spoke about this, he showed us by his example what to do, but he's also saying, I want you to do what I am doing. And more. If a tree is alive, it's growing. There's another branch, another leaf, right? So Krishna consciousness is expansive. This building, these devotees, they are Prabhupada's grace. They are Prabhupada's Shakti. He has manifested this by speaking. And so we want to glorify Srila Prabhupada. don't doubt that Krishna, just even a child can do this. We were speaking this morning at the Bhakti Center in Manhattan. We're remembering there's a devotee, Chakravarti. You know Chakravarti? Mother Dina Sharna said Chakravarti. He's German. When he was in London as a student, college student, he saw the devotees chanting and he went back to the temple with them. And they were preparing for the Sunday feast to receive guests, so they were cleaning and cooking. And they said to him, you can help if you like. You can clean the stairs. He was a college student, a little bit proud. Clean it. You want me? God. So he went, and he said he was sitting on the stair with a rag, with one finger. He was going. And little Saraswati, Malati's daughter, 5 years old, came up the stairs and said to him, that's not how you serve Krishna. You serve Krishna like this. And she was guruing. And he was shocked. It went right to the heart. And he said, my God, even the children can understand that this is something to give your whole heart to. And he said, at that moment, my doubts fell away and I started cleaning those stairs. And I've been in the movement he's been in there with us probably almost 50 years now. So the Guru's grace is there. We're hearing about it. And you're hearing about it now. First you hear, I can do this. I'm asked to do this. Srila Prabhupada is pleased if I do that. Then we desire, I want to do this. And then Krishna. Can everyone say, how wonderful is Krishna?
How wonderful is Krishna?
How wonderful is Krishna? Krishna. Right? Krishna can empower us to do this. Why not? Don't be ridiculous. This is meant to go on and on forever. This is Lord Chaitanya's eternal Sankirtan Yagya. And there are other opinions. Some people, they say, okay, preach, but you're not guru. But I don't know, that's not what I heard from my spiritual master. Lord Chaitanya said, on my order become guru, save the land. I mean, that's what he said. It's right there in the books. On my order, take up this service. Give what you've received. This is not a dead end. So we call upon you to take up this wonderful life of sacrifice out of love. In the Bible it says, even if you can speak with the tongues of men and angels, even if you can heal the sick, even if you can raise the dead, even if you can convert the multitudes, what does it say? If it's done without love, it's useless. Krishna says, Patram Pushpam Palam. If you offer me with leaf, a flower, or fruit, or water with love, not out of pride, not out of arrogance. When I first saw Srila Prabhupada's picture in the book, and I put it up in my room when I was reading the book, I was thinking, this man he has such dignity, such regal deportment, such, I don't know, is this arrogance? Is this pride? But when I saw Srila Prabhupada personally and looked in his eyes, I said to myself, this is a genuinely humble person. And he's doing what he's doing. He's living this life of sacrifice out of love for his spiritual master. Prabhupada said, I love you, means I love you for you. We were looking, Vaishya Prabhu was telling us, everybody knows Vaishya Shekhar, Vaishya Shekhar. He's telling us, that people have a natural inclination to have shelter, to have leadership, to have someone caring for them. When I was an undergraduate, I worked in an orphanage in the Bronx. We had 300 children living there. And I was taking care of 15 boys in one wing of the building, between 9 and 12 years old, from 3 o'clock in the afternoon till 9 o'clock at night. 15. Welcoming them back from school, playing baseball with them, hanging around with them, feeding them dinner, time for shower, brush your teeth, get your pajamas on, go to bed every day. And orphan, you know this word, orphan? Somewhere there are parents, right? There are no children without parents. So somewhere they had a father, a mother, but there was incarceration or maybe alcoholism or drug addiction or criminal activity. They were in prison or psychiatric facility, broken home. And so their caretakers, primary caretaker, their parents, were not there. And I remember one day, the wing we were in would go this way, and then there was an entrance, and then there was another wing going out the other side, and there was a social worker's office down that hallway, and they would bring in a child who had been entrusted to child care agency. And I remember seeing this one boy, his name Tommy Jarina, and he was standing there outside the social worker's office. And from about 80 yards away or 60 yards away, I could see just the way he was standing. And he felt like there was nobody there for him. But you look at these children who are there with their parents, and even if they're 10 feet away, if they know my father's there, my mother's there, they're caring for me. So Vaisheshika Prabhu was saying, there's a natural tendency to be cared for. In the Srimad Bhagavatam verse yesterday morning at the Bhakti Center, it was talking about how woman should be protected by a father in her childhood, should be under the protection of her husband in marriage, should be under the care of her elder sons in her old age. And some people, they feel belittled. Oh, somebody must care for me, I'm not independent and capable. But actually, who would turn down care? Who would turn down loving care? Not coercion or exploitation or control, but somebody who's actually willing to die for you, willing to be there for you. Only a foolish. We all need that care, not just women. And it's available. Krishna. Can everyone say how wonderful is Krishna? How wonderful is Krishna. How wonderful is Krishna that when the disciple is ready, the guru appears in your life. If you have no guru, it's because you don't want guru. But any sane person will understand there's somebody greater than me. Time is out. Get the hook. There goes Adi. Okay, we'll go to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Do we have the circulating mic somewhere? Somewhere it's disappeared. Okay. So thank you all for coming for this program this afternoon. I won't speak at all very long here because we have several devotees to talk and we don't have much time. I'm not sure if this clock in the back is correct. It's been wrong all day. But I don't have another timepiece on me. So we're going to put, we'll have Kavi Chandra speak, then Lochana. Okay, so you're not going to speak. So we'll have Locanananda speak next. And where did Pancaratna go? He's over there. Okay, then Pancaratna can speak, and then Atitaguna and Anandamoya, and Bakula's here? Okay, so that'll be our group, and since we have only till 5:30, it gives everybody about 10 minutes. That's not very long time, and I apologize, but I didn't make the schedule. I tried to make the schedule, but that's how the schedule wound up, and it's been changed already 50 times. So, yeah, that's what I would have liked to. No, it's not possible. They have the the altar coming open at a certain time. They have to do the Guru Puja at a certain time. People have to go back home at a certain time. They have to have the prasadam served out at a certain time. So, at any rate, it's out of my hands. It was not the way I would have wanted it, but at any rate, that's the way it is. So, please bear with us. And so, Locanananda, can you please come to the fore here? Yes. And then Pancaratna and Atitaguna, Anandamoya and Bakula. Hare Krishna.
Oh, there's a lot of devotees here. Before speaking, I always address Srila Prabhupada, because I know if he did not give me the power to speak, I would not be able to say one word in glorification of him or of Krishna or the devotees. So there's a verse that we say, Mukham karoti vachalam pangum langayate garim yat kripa tamaham bande shri gurun dinataranam. That even if a person is blind, he will be able to see the stars in the sky by the grace of Krishna. Or if he is lame, he'll be able to cross over a mountain. Or if he cannot speak, by Krishna's grace, he will be able to recite beautiful poetry. So whatever power we have is coming from Krishna, especially in the case of the devotees, because they are empowered. They are empowered to speak on behalf of the spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada. That is called transparency. The power that we have is due to transparency. In other words, there is no adulteration, there is no alteration. We are simply repeating what we have heard in disciplic succession. I like Adi-Purusa Prabhu's description of how the devotees have love for one another, as Jesus said in the Bible, love one another as I have loved thee. And in this way you will be known as my followers. So similarly, devotees have great affection for one another. They care for one another. They help one another. Sometimes that love becomes tough love. If somebody has misconceptions that they don't want to give up, or having difficulties with the regulative principles of freedom that Srila Prabhupada taught us to follow. So there is chastisement, but we take that as special mercy. It's like on a feast plate, you have a little chutney on the side, so just to spice it up. So Srila Prabhupada gave us so much. He left this world on November 14th, 1977. 2 days later, there was an article about him in the New York Times. I don't know if you've seen that, but we used to have it in the museum, Prabhupada Museum, the original edition of that. And Srila Prabhupada was praised as having astounded the academic community by the production, the prolific production of transcendental literature. That is Krishna's miracle. This movement and the way it was spread so quickly like wildfire all over the world was Krishna's miracle. And it was through Srila Prabhupada that it was accomplished. He came to this Western world, to New York City, and opened his first temple here. And he was praying to Krishna before his arrival. He was still on the Jaladuta. You know, he crossed the ocean, but before getting to the ocean journey, he had 2 heart attacks crossing the Adriatic Sea. And he said that Krishna came and massaged my heart. And in that way he survived it. And then the crossing of the Atlantic Ocean was so calm, it was so peaceful, that the captain of the ship, Captain Pandya, said, Swamiji, we want you to return to India with us when we leave from New York, so we'll have another peaceful crossing. But of course, Prabhupada had other ideas. His plan was to execute the mission that was given to him by his spiritual master, that you spread Krishna consciousness in the English-speaking countries. That was given to him when he first met his spiritual master. So for some of you, this is the first time that you're meeting devotees, that you're hearing about Prabhupada, that you're seeing Radha Govinda on the altar. But the message is the same, that we need everyone to take part in this movement. And in this way you will be blessed by Krishna. In the Bhagavad Gita it is said that that devotee who is explaining the secret of Krishna consciousness to other devotees, he is most dear to me. So we want everyone here to become dear to Krishna. So propagating the chanting of the holy name, distributing transcendental knowledge. In Srila Prabhupada's books, they give us the essence of that knowledge. It is the most secret of all secrets. It is the king of education. So that is our focus. We want to maintain the temples that he established. During Srila Prabhupada's presence here, he established the deity worship of Radha and Krishna, or Lord Jagannath, or Gaur Nitai, or Krishna Balaram, or so many deities in all of the major cities in the world. That's a miracle. Can anyone here say that they have done anything comparable? No, because Srila Prabhupada was especially empowered, and he came here and started it single-handedly. No one came to help him. He was very aggressive, transcendentally aggressive. He said, no one invited me to come here to spread Krishna consciousness, so I was aggressive. And we are following in his footsteps. That's why you hear it in my voice, that we have something that we must achieve in our lifetime. Some of us are getting up in years, but it was at this age that Srila Prabhupada came to the West, and look what he accomplished in just a short time. So similarly, we have to take it upon ourselves, first of all, to preserve the legacy, to not change what he has given. Do not change the priorities. First of all, propagate the chanting of the holy name. And the only way you can do that is by having a good sadhana, rising early, worshiping Krishna, offering your food to the Lord, chanting your rounds, following regulative principles, and studying the Shastra. Even if it's just one verse a day and one purport. Prabhupada said, if you want to know me, read my books. So if you want to follow in his footsteps, you have to know what he accomplished. And then we have to become menial servants at his lotus feet. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
We could have Pancaratna come to chair. Pancaratna also spoke earlier today, but we're asking him to speak twice for the benefit of all the people here in the temple of commemorating.
Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Budle Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharini Devi Sesha Sunnivari Paschatade Shitarini. For those of you who are here for the first time, or those who are just beginning to associate with our movement and our programs here, what you just heard is a Sanskrit prayer to our founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnupadaya. Nama is to offer one's, we use the word obeisance. I've always been intrigued, because whenever I type Microsoft Word and so on, they pick up the word obeisances and obeisance, and it's kind of a strange word. How many here have heard the word obeisance prior to coming here? You have, okay. You know what it means to prostrate, to offer, to in Sanskrit it is namaha. And it is a very, someone's phone I think is ringing. Anyway, the they'll get the hint. The person who's calling. Reminds me of a little story. I just heard this story, so I'll say it. There was the Pope and a saint from India met. It was an interfaith program in the Vatican, and the saint was speaking with the Pope and noticed a golden phone on the person's desk and said, "What's that phone?" "Oh, that's my hotline to God." And "Oh, yes, yes, you can call. And he picked up the phone and he was speaking, "Oh, yes, Nama, Nama," in Sanskrit, God knows all languages, right? So he was conversing and offering his obeisances. But the Pope said, okay, it's very costly. It's like $1,000 a minute. That's this really long distance. So, okay. So then it just so happens that the Pope comes to visit Vrindavan, where this saint was living. And they come and they're very, very happy to see each other. And now the Pope sees that, there's a golden phone in the saint's room. Yes, I got the idea from you. So I've also put in a phone. And so, may I? And so the Pope starts speaking and he starts telling about, there's a lot of people out there in our church that are just not getting it, and he really kind of pours his heart out and goes on for like 20, 30 minutes, and then finally he winds down and he turns to the saint and says, "Oh, I'm so sorry. That must cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars." And the saint says, "No, don't worry. That's a local call." Because God actually has a home, has many homes in our world. Anyway, that's a little aside. But obeisances. So obeisances, Nama Om Vishnu Padaya. Vishnu Padaya means the one who is sitting at the feet of the Lord, who is blessed to be under the shelter of God's holy feet, like right there. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya. Krishna Preshtaya. Preshtaya means dear, very dear to Krishna. Bhutale, of the whole world. He is one of the dearest. Srimate, honorific address, Bhaktivedanta Swami iti namine, who is known as Bhaktivedanta Swami. This is a standard prayer to one's guru. But then he gave us another prayer to help us especially understand his service and his mission. That again begins Namaste. I offer obeisance to you. Namaste Saraswati Devi. He brought emphasis that he is serving as a servant of his guru, known as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. So Saraswati Devi means as a servant of Saraswati, Gauravani Pracharine. Gauravani, the message of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the avatar of Krishna in the form of his own devotee, to spread the Krishna consciousness movement. The movement that goes beyond any sort of social designations, any sort of caste or creed or race or nation or religion even. to awaken love for God by this sublime method of simply singing and chanting the names of Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Govinda, Rama, singing the names of God with love. This sublime method, this teaching of Gauravani Pracharine. Pracharine means to spread, to teach, to preach. But then we get like Locanananda was talking about the aggressiveness, you could say, that to do this, there are obstacles in the world. To spread this love of God in the chanting of the holy names of Krishna, especially in the West, but I should say, living in India, I live in India now for the last 40 years, most of my life. I can say that this same obstacle is there, and in fact, it comes from there. And the words that Srila Prabhupada uses, nirvisesha sunyavadi. These words represent the primary obstacles in the world today in people's acceptance of this simple love of God. Nirvisesha. Nirvisesha means the conception that God is impersonal. God is simply that great power, energy, something that is everywhere. We are all ultimately God. To deny the personality of God means to deny the capacity to love Him. How can you love? How can you even feel cared for, as was spoken about by Adi-Purusa Prabhu, by some impersonal energy? Yes, there may be some feeling of presence, but to awaken love, which we're all seeking, we seek love in relationship. So nirvisesha, and even worse, sunyavadi. Sunyavadi means that ultimately it's all nothing. Nirvisesha sunyavadi paschatyadesh. So here we come to this unique quality of Srila Prabhupada. Paschatya, Western. Paschatyadesh, the desh means countries. So the Paschatyadesh, the Western world that's never heard of Krishna, at least in 1965, when he arrived on the shores of the US. How many people had heard of Krishna? There are a few people perhaps had picked up the Bhagavad Gita. But even then, when they picked up the Bhagavad Gita, I also picked it up when I was 17 years old or so, maybe 1968. I couldn't understand a word. Paschatyadesh, this land where if anything was understood from India and Vedic philosophy and Bhagavad Gita, it was filled with this nirvishesha concept. Tarine. Tarine means to deliver, to save. So this is the prayer that we offer those of us who have accepted the path given by Srila Prabhupada. Accepted him as our teacher, accepted him as our guru, accepted him as our guide, And as was pointed out by Adi-Purusa just now, and Locanananda Prabhu, this opportunity is there, remains for all of us. We were fortunate enough to have some personal connection, to meet him, to observe, and to be accepted by him personally. But you also have the opportunity, if you choose, to observe and to be accepted. Srila Prabhupada has established a family first by initiating his own disciples, and then by giving those disciples the orders to initiate and to accept others. In this way, a dynasty, a family, a great, great family has been established, which is not separate from his family, which is part of a bigger family, and now it's a pretty big family. The family that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Krishna himself, has established to spread the chanting, the singing, the love of Krishna in every town, in every village, in every heart in this world. So please examine this if you haven't already. I think mostly in our room here we find followers of Srila Prabhupada who have chosen, yes, I can trust this person. My own experience was 1970, and I'll just finish here because I know I'm gone a little over. In 1970, I happened to be in Toronto, Canada. Long story, but I was passing by the small Hare Krishna temple on my way to I had a job, actually, really unusual for me. But anyway, and I thought I had so much spiritual concepts to share with others, Anyway, if you weren't living in the 60s, you might not fully understand what I'm talking about. But I entered in. And rather than, spouting off my own ideas, I listened. And when I read some of what Srila Prabhupada had written, first I observed what Locanananda described, cleaning the stairs. I remember seeing the devotees cleaning the stairs and cleaning everything. And I just observed how they were serving. They were in this service, in everything. They had this mood of service, which I actually had an idea, that's probably what we are meant to do, is serve God. But they were doing it. The mantra, of course, captured my heart. But when I read Srila Prabhupada, when I heard or I read, people asked me, when did you meet Srila Prabhupada? And my response, well, when I read his book. Because I felt that I had met someone who knew God. Who knew God. He had that phone, and it was a local call. He had it. I had that impression. And I hope that you also, as you explore, if you haven't already, you'll also feel that here is a person who knows God. And who is God? God is our dearest friend. So when you have a friend of a friend, right, you know you're in good hands. Please continue to accept his shelter and take this opportunity, this special day, to deepen your remembrance. I'm sorry for taking too long. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I'll just say a little bit about Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada was born of Gaur Mohan Day and Rajani Day. Rajani was about 30 years old when Abhay Charan was born. Both Gaur Mohan and Rajani came from well-established Gaudiya Vaishnava families. Srila Prabhupada was inspired by Narendra Maulik to go to meet Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami. Abhay was hesitant because of his experience with so many sadhus who were bogus, but Narendranath insisted and Prabhupada gave in. They arrived at the ashram and found Bhaktisiddhanta sitting with his back straight, and he is described as a studious-looking man, wearing sannyas robes and small round spectacles. Both Narendranath and Abhay bowed down to pay obeisances, and before they could get up, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami stated, "You are educated young men. Why don't you preach the message of Krishna all over the world?" This took place before a dialogue between them. The response was, "Who will hear our message as long as we are a dependent country? First, India must become independent. How can we spread our culture if we are under British rule?" Bhaktisiddhanta replied in a quiet, deep voice, "The message of Krishna cannot wait for a change in Indian politics. It is not dependent on who ruled. The teachings of Bhagavad Gita are so important, so exclusively important, that it cannot wait." After leaving, Narendranath asked Abhay what was his impression. Abhay replied, "The message of Bhagavad Gita are in the hands of a very expert person." Srila Prabhupada accepted Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami as his spiritual master. Immediately, and in 1933 received formal initiation from him. After meeting only for a few minutes, Bhaktisiddhanta passed away in 1936. In 1944, Prabhupada started Back to Godhead magazine, and in 1954, he left home to execute Bhaktisiddhanta's orders. Srila Prabhupada met Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, Dr. Radha Krishna, and Lal Bahadur Shastri in preparation for the execution of Bhaktisiddhanta's orders. Prabhupada stated, "I tried to start the movement in India, but no support. My friends were not sympathetic. And in 1965, he came to the United States with great difficulty. In 1966, ISKCON was registered and regular meetings held after July 1966 in New York. An astrologer confirmed, and that was an astrologer who looked at Prabhupada's palm, and he said, "Your orders will be executed," indicating that Srila Prabhupada had immense leadership qualities, indicating the leadership qualities found in Srila Prabhupada. In 1896, Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote the teachings of Lord Chaitanya in English and presented a copy to McGill University in Montreal. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is accredited with the rediscovery of Lord Chaitanya's birthplace and a vision where a great Mayapur Mandir will arise. And there will be an individual who will spread the teachings of Lord Chaitanya to the Western world. No other than Srila Prabhupada. And backing up a little, we saw that in 1918, Srila Prabhupada was married. In 1921, he had his first son. In 1922, he met Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. He was 25 years old and had 2 children at that time. The Vedic scriptures state that one should always try to associate with saintly persons and disassociate oneself from the common man, because one word from a saintly person can liberate one from material entanglement by gaining the favor of a saintly person. What cannot be accomplished in thousands of lifetimes can be gained in a second or a moment if one has the opportunity to meet a saintly person. So Srila Prabhupada declares that from birth he was Krishna conscious, and by merely coming in contact with such a devotee like Bhaktisiddhanta, we see the effect he has on each of us here. Simply by a touch of this pure devotee. Prabhupada preached extensively during 1966 to 76 and worked tirelessly with many devotees who also worked tirelessly to accomplish the translation of Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, teachings of Lord Chaitanya, Nectar of Devotion, Nectar of Instruction, and so many other books. After all of this vigorous preaching, he returned in Vrindavan Dham, and in November 14, 1977, Srila Prabhupada left the mortal world. When this news reached the devotees around the world, it was the most devastating day. Devotees were crying and heartbroken, as if they had lost their most beloved. Indeed, today we can see that the devotees of Srila Prabhupada, and there are a few names that I mentioned here, Jayadvaita Maharaj, Hamsarupa, Chandrasekhar Swami, that are here, and so many other devotees that are displaying their love for Srila Prabhupada by following in his footsteps so carefully and continuing the spread of Krishna consciousness. The order of Bhaktisiddhanta Goswami and Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare.
So
Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chaksur Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. As many of my God brothers have stated here, very eloquently, the message of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was a global message. And the proof is that I'm sitting here. The message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu reached to me in South America back in 1975. I was just a child, but I was able to get in touch with the devotees who then handed me down a pamphlet at that time. And I kid you not, when I saw it was a yellow pamphlet, well, it was actually a neon green pamphlet. And I looked at it, and it was a Krishna sitting with a Gopal, with a cow. And when I saw it, I see Krishna smiled at me. And something that touched me, and something was up. And it changed my life forever. And I joined the devotees, and it was like joining an army, traveling Sankirtan. We didn't have a temple in South America and Central America. So by 1976, 1975, we opened up temples in El Salvador, Guatemala, preaching all over the world. And we did bring the message of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to the jungles of South America. So it did the message, the holy name, reach to every corner of the world. Without a doubt, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's were realized by the will of Srila Prabhupada and his devotees. The message reached out to everybody, and that is the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and why we love being part of this movement, this beautiful movement that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Srila Prabhupada gave us. But the one thing I wanted to talk to you, Srila Prabhupada, and to you also, is that at the beginning of this year, I was confused. I didn't know what was going on in the world. So I wanted to take shelter, and what I did, I went back and I read Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srila Prabhupada's literature that he wrote along with the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita. Because I needed to find clarity with this dystopian world that we're living in, and with its pandemic and the craziness that's been going on. And I started reading the Chaitanya Charitamrita and found inspiration there, Srila Prabhupada. The beautiful words. Yeah, the message there is very clear. It was opened my eyes, and it made me commit myself to continue the message, to continue taking on this process, to chanting the holy name, and continue the sadhana, bhakti, which is essential for us to maintain our devotion to Krishna and to Srila Prabhupada. So what I discovered there, as I was reading, is that when the advent of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took place in 1486, and as a student of history, I also realized there that also in the 1483, also someone else took birth, and because it was a moment of great awakening. That was Martin Luther, the great Christian reformer, had also taken birth at that time, along with John Calvin and Christopher Columbus. That was an age of great awakening and great discoveries. And it is obvious that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu changed the course of history. and usher a new age of enlightenment. And fast forward 500 years later, Srila Prabhupada, just like Hanuman, jumped over the oceans to come here, bringing the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the love of God and Krishna to burn Maya in the material world in the West. And so when I saw that, I see the certain patterns repeat. Like they say, history repeats. Maybe if it not repeats, it kind of rhymes. But to see Srila Prabhupada bringing the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and at the same time, in the 60s, seeing Martin Luther King Jr. too, being at the same time spreading the civil rights movement at the time. And you see that the certain patterns kind of repeat, unbeknownst to us, and to make the connection. And I realized that this is a moment of great awakening, that this tribulations, this hardship that comes to us in the form of a pandemic is for us to realize that we're in this long journey, and that never ends. It's an infinite journey. And our mission is to continue to spread the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and to continue to be like a family and to help each other, because that's how we get through these difficult moments. It's by the sadhu sangha, by actually connecting and associating with devotees, being able to worship the Lord, Shri Radha Govinda, and the devotees, and all my God brothers, and the entire family of devotees that live in the temple, and everything that Srila Prabhupada gave us. Because Prabhupada built this movement and handed over to us. And we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him. I personally wouldn't be here. And I'm eternally grateful. And all I can say is that I'm here to commit to be life after life, to be in the service of Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Namo Vishnuvadaya Krishnastai Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Te Namane Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nivishesha Shunyavadi Paschachari Zatavane. Well, I joined ISKCON in New Zealand, and the temple president was a very intelligent man. And he kept on saying something, and I picked it up. All your spiritual wishes will be fulfilled. And I thought, okay, I'm going to go for the top. I'm going to go for something that may not be possible. So I thought, okay, my spiritual desire is that I personally be initiated by Srila Prabhupada. So many things happened, and before I knew it, we were in Melbourne, Australia. It was April 1976. And in those days, the devotees were saying, Srila Prabhupada's coming, no he's not. We didn't really know if he was coming. But my spiritual desire was, okay, I want him to come, and I want him to personally initiate me. So So actually he did come around the 24th of April, 1976. And there was a little girl there that I used to look after, a little 4-year-old girl, and we were standing there to be initiated by Srila Prabhupada. And she was holding my hand, and she was wearing a rose-colored sari. And then Srila Prabhupada called me, and the little girl held my hand, and we both went up. And in those days, the ladies paid dandavats, so we both paid dandavats. And then she looked up at Srila Prabhupada and said, "Srila Prabhupada, does that mean I'm initiated now?" And he said, "No." So the GBC in charge, Guru Kripa Maharaj, gave her a rose. And then Srila Prabhupada asked me, what are the 4 regulative principles? Am I chanting 16 rounds? And so I answered him. And then he said, "Okay, your name is Anita." And then what happened is that his secretary would figure out the names for people. So he looked at the name and he said, "Oh, your name is Anita." "No, it's not. No, it's not. That is not a Vaishnav name. You can't have that name. Anita means without a path, and we Vaishnavas have a path. So I am going to call you Atitaguna." And then I realized, yes, he personally initiated me. Then I realized my spiritual desire was fulfilled. And in the evening, there was darshan, and one little girl's mother went to Srila Prabhupada and said, I'd like you to give my daughter a name." So he said, "Oh yeah, sure, Pushpa, meaning flower." And then that little girl whose hand I clasped, her mother went up and said, "Srila Prabhupada, also, can you give my daughter a name?" So he said, "Yeah, Rose." And everyone went, "What? Rose? That's not Sanskrit." And then I figured out the name for rose in Sanskrit is gulab. So I was thinking maybe it might have been difficult to go through life with a name like Gulab. So anyway, she was wearing a rose-colored sari. Guru Kripa gave her a rose, and then Srila Prabhupada gave her a rose. So anyway, the next day, we were allowed to go with Srila Prabhupada to the botanical gardens. Now, the Melbourne botanical gardens are particularly beautiful. And as it was a botanical gardens, every tree or flower was named, the Latin name and English name. So the ladies were walking in the back, and then there was one girl, and she was a little adventurous, and she grabbed my hand. She said, "We're not staying in the back, we're going to the front. We want to hear what Srila Prabhupada has to say." So the other ladies, they were very happy because when Srila Prabhupada stepped on a leaf or something like that, they picked that up as prasadam. And then we ran down to the front, and Srila Prabhupada was, he grabbed a leaf from one of the trees and crushed it. And then he smelt it. he said, what is this? And they said, Srila Prabhupada, it's camphor. He said, oh, camphor. It's Radharani's favorite smell. And then later on I realized in many of the substances that are given to Krishna and Radharani, there is a lot of camphor. Then one devotee said, Srila Prabhupada, you keep on saying that we're living in Vaikuntha, and Vaikuntha means without anxiety, but I find that I'm in a lot of anxiety. And Prabhupada said, yes, if you're not in anxiety, you are not a human being. You are, and this is the Bengali name for it, zombie. So he said, you pick, what kind of anxiety do you want to be in? You want to be in material, or you want to be in spiritual? So material is like, everyone's going to praise me for how many books I've distributed, and I can pray for that. Or actually, Mother Yasoda is always in spiritual anxiety, thinking, she's always thinking, is Krishna eating enough? Is he warm enough? Does he have enough ornaments on? That sort of thing. So it was very interesting to get that information. And so we were staying in a beautiful temple, Melbourne temple. There was a lovely garden with lots of flowers, and it was time for Srila Prabhupada to leave, and he was able to stay about 3 days, but that was a lifetime for me. So I went to the garden and picked flowers and made a posy, and then we went to the airport to see Srila Prabhupada off. So he accepted nearly all the posies, and I was in complete non-Vaikuntha. I was in complete anxiety, thinking, is he going to accept mine or not? And anyway, he did. So as I was saying, the ladies, they paid dandavat, so I was paying his dandavat, my dandavats. And I looked up, and they were Srila Prabhupada's feet. So I'm like, okay, I'll touch them. So I was in a lot of trepidation, and so anyway, I reached out and I touched them, and it was like I didn't want to let go. And that's what's happened to me, actually. I'm still wanting to touch Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet and never let go. But then I realized he's got to get on a plane, I've got to do service, so physically I let go, but metaphorically I'm still hanging on. Hare Krishna.